The next section of our notes is going to be talking about marriage and having children. The book goes over factors that are used to predict a successful marriage. So when we look at marriages that are long and healthy and loving, we find that mostly they have got married when they were an adult age, 20s or older. They had a good reason to marry. They wanted to love their partner. The length of the relationship prior to marriage was longer. They're having similar attitudes about having children and also parenting and how they're going to parent. They have similar interests so that they can share time together. They are interested in many of the same things. They have a sexual commitment to each other. They have good character and they make good decisions. That's going to help a lot when you are talking about all the financial decisions you have to make in a marriage. And they're honest. The parents' success at marriage. So if the partners that are getting married or that are married had parents that were also in successful marriages, that can help your marriage because you have seen from the modeling of your parents that you know how to resolve conflict and work through tough times. Also, your parents' attitude about your partner, especially if you have a close bond with your parents, you're going to have a lot less issues if your parents accept your partner. And the last is that you carefully selected your partner and that you are accepting them the way that they are. Next, we're going to look at our wedding vows and how marriage really needs to be a commitment to your vows. So there's two ways to look at this. You can have a commitment motivated marriage and you can write in there what is in red. And that means you're going to behave the way that you promise. So whatever your vows are, you're going to honor those vows. So it's really important when you get married that you read over those vows and think, can I really do what these are going to say? And then there's feelings motivated marriage, and this is just behaving how you feel at the moment. Very similar to dating. I mean, you could get mad at the person, break up with them, leave, give them their stuff back. It's really just however you're feeling at that moment. The problem with a feelings motivated marriage is it creates a loss of trust, security, and commitment. The marriage becomes very unstable. Basically, it's just like dating, except you're married. If one person's mad, they're just going to leave, and they're not going to try to stick it out and work it out. So that is probably a bad idea. If you want to just have that type of relationship, it's probably best to stay in the dating realm because marriage can be very expensive if you have to end it. No one can promise how they feel for a lifetime. However, they can promise how they will act. So again, make sure you know what you're saying when you say those vows. Now on to the stages of marriage. You're going to write how many years. So the first one is 1 to 2 years. And you're going to pick at least one of these things that they need to accomplish during this time to move on successfully. So during the honeymoon phase, they want to have their own identity, develop cooperation, develop a sexual bond, try not to control each other, and recognize that there will be difficulties. If they think it's going to be a fairy tale, they're wrong. So they need to be prepared for that. The second stage is 3 to 10 years, and the biggest thing that couples can do during this time is to avoid dysfunctional behaviors. Generally during this time, they've had kids. The kids are changing their marriage because they don't get as much time together. So you need to look at how kids impact your marriage and reaffirm your sexual commitment and intimacy and recognize if you have any weaknesses and confront them so that you don't end up in a situation where one partner is feeling kind of trapped or that the other person isn't going to help them. So during stages 2 and 3, there are probably the majority of divorces that we see are happening during these 2 stages. So the third stage then is 11 to 25 years. It's kind of the middle of the road, and kids are getting older and starting to leave the house. So it's important for the adults, the parents, to re-examine and maintain their own identity, forgive their spouse, not hold grudges for past issues for the past 10 or more years, and also confront if there is any middle age crisis issues. So what that means is sometimes around 40 or 50 years old, parents may end up kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm getting old, and they kind of get freaked out. And so they may start doing some things to try to feel young again. So if one partner's going through it and the other partner doesn't understand, that can create major issues. The fourth stage is, I call it, are we there yet? it's 26 to 35 years. During this time, partners need to reevaluate, like look at their successes. They need to recognize aging and the physical changes that go with aging and how it affects their sexuality. They now probably have kids out of the house so they can rekindle their romance and also grieve losses like parents that may be passing away and other family members. Last, don't see a lot of divorces in this one. 35 years or more. They're preparing for retirement, renewing intimacy, preparing for death as a stage of life, and finding common interests to enjoy together at retirement age. At the bottom, it says teenage marriage doesn't give you enough time to, and we have 3 that we can think of, and you can add your own, but these are 3 main ones. It doesn't give you time to grow up. There's still a lot of lessons in life and things to figure out. It's going to be a lot trickier to do that when you have this lifelong commitment with someone. And it doesn't give you time to finish schooling and training for your career, and it also doesn't give you time to be financially independent. So more than 60% of teenage marriages do fail within 5 years, which is pretty high. So you want to avoid teenage marriage if at all possible. Now turn the page, and now it's time to talk about being a parent. So the 3 R's we need to consider before becoming a parent. Reason, why do you want to become a parent? Resources, do you have the resources to take care of a child? Do you have a place to live? Do you have transportation? Do you have a job? Just daycare alone, you're looking at anywhere from $400 to $600 a month for one child. It's very expensive. And responsibility, can you handle the responsibility involved? There's going to be a lot of late nights where babies are up, crying, kids are going to get sick, and it is a load of responsibility to keep another human alive and safe and well. 3 not so good reasons to become a parent. You want to watch out for these if you find yourself kind of thinking this way. One is to build up your own ego, just like, oh, I'm going to have a little stud muffin like myself. You also want to watch out to compensate, like if you're bored or lonely, oh, let's have a kid. It's probably not the best reason. And to conform, oh, everybody else is doing it. We already have a dog, let's have a kid. The best reason to become a parent, and you can write this down, is to love and guide a child. Keyword here, guide. You're going to see that again in a minute. And here in the box you can see almost anyone can become a parent, which is a noun, to be a parent. But it is the action of parenting that is very, very difficult. So you have to think, do you have what it takes to parent? And to parent is to guide a child to responsible adulthood. And it starts when they are a baby, loving and nurturing them. And even you can see here, this little one's probably close to 1 year old. Even at this point, you're starting to guide them to become a responsible adult just by teaching them the small little things and by loving them. Discipline is a critical element to parenting. A lot of times people kind of get frightened by this word because they think it's, no, they're mean or they're strict. And we kind of give it a bad rap, but it is really good because it teaches your kids self-discipline and self-control. And there are good ways to do this. So here are some examples. First is preventative. You're going to write what's in red. So you're going to write the example, and you can write an example maybe your parents use that works for you. But preventative is when a parent explains the correct behavior and the consequences of the wrong behavior. So for example, put your bike away after you're done riding it, or you're not riding it for 3 days. Next is behavior modification. This is positive rewards. Pets love this. We give them treats when they do good things, and humans, well, we're not too far from that. We are very similar. If you give us a reward, we will do what you want. So teach that to your children. It's a great tactic for potty training. If you behave, I will give you $1 to spend at the store. That's one way to keep your kids out of trouble at the grocery store. Logical consequences. This one's my favorite. This is when the child experiences the result of their own behavior. Of course, you got to keep it safe, but an example would be child forgets their lunch money at home, the parent doesn't bring it in. So the child gets whatever the minimal amount is at lunch that day, and the next time the kid will probably remember to get their money before they head out for school that day. Next is physical punishment. This is slapping or spanking a child to teach them not to repeat the undesirable behavior. You want to reserve this to keep the child safe from something that may harm them. For example, maybe you have a little kid who wants to keep putting their a fork or a pen in an outlet, and you take their hand and you smack it. Maybe you've already tried a few other ways, but they're not listening. So this was a way that you could do it. You do not want to use this for every single thing. And I'm going to give you some pointers with this in a minute. Spanking and slapping your child is legal and it can be done, but there are some problems. First of all, it's ineffective at teaching long-range discipline and self-control. If you use it for everything, it's overused and it really doesn't teach the kid much. It also causes anxiety and hostility in children if it's something that is always used or excessive. And if a parent isn't too careful, it can be considered abuse. If you're spanking or slapping a child when you're mad and you're leaving marks, if you're doing things that really go above and beyond normal, like a normal spanking or a normal slap, that is obviously going to be too much. And also, you never want to ever hurt a little baby or, a small child. You want to really avoid that type of situation. If you were abused, there is this thing called the cycle of abuse, and you want to make sure that you end the cycle of abuse, meaning you don't want the abuse that happened to you to now happen to your children, because that's how we often repeat how our parents parented us. So if you were abused, you want to get counseling, hopefully before you have kids, and maybe not use physical punishment and use other discipline methods. Lastly, effective parents do these things. They discuss and post the rules and consequences. The kids know the rules. They know what's going to happen if they break the rules. And what I've done is every year when school starts, I'll usually come up with a new set. The kids will kind of talk to me about it, and then I'll post it up on our whiteboard in our kitchen. And then there are all the major rules and consequences for our house. You need to be consistent and fair, so parents need to keep after it. It's hard, it's exhausting, but you need to stick with it. If the rule is there and there's a consequence, then you stick to it. And the last is you want to use a variety of discipline methods. Don't just use the same thing, and you want to make sure that the punishment fits the crime. So if they're not doing the homework and they're hiding their homework, then the punishment should directly deal with getting their homework done and not doing other fun things until homework gets done. The problem with becoming a teen parent is it's very emotionally and physically exhausting to parent to do it the right way. So they can possibly not be ready for that. You need to be independent and self-sufficient to be able to be an effective parent. And so, again, teens are not really 100% ready for that either. And they're not financially stable, and it is extremely costly to raise a child. I think the recent estimates are well over $100,000 to get a child through to 18 years.